What's going on, guys? Hunter here, and I'm joined with my one and only Xbow friend.
Yo, what's up guys? SK here, and in today's video we're going to be doing a fun collaboration. As you just heard, my good friend Hunter is here on the call, and some news for you guys. The final balance changes have finally dropped. It feels like it's been maybe like a month, an extra month since they came, because they had that whole glitch, but the final balances are finally here, and they've arrived. And so in today's video, Hunter and I are going to be reacting to the changes and giving our collective thoughts on these balances, how they'll do for the state of the game, and just giving our thoughts and just having a fun little discussion video between
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to. I actually haven't looked at them that in depth, so I'm kind of excited to just look at all the balances in general.
Yeah, for sure. So just before we get into the individual breakdowns, we'll talk about each individual card, but Hunter, do you have any thoughts on overall, like looking at this balance? Like what were your first impressions? How do you feel about it?
Right. Well, if you know me, the first thing I saw was the bomber, and of course, that thing is, bro. It's been horrible. I'm not gonna lie, but I'm glad that it got nerfed. Hopefully, it's not. I hope it's still used, but not anything like it was. Also, poison is probably the second one that popped up out to me, because poison, it's just been like the best spell in my opinion
Yeah, for sure,
for
for
many
sure.
months. So, but yeah, other than that, that's pretty much those two. Those two hit me right away.
All right.
What about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think definitely, the bomber and the dagger duchess like stood out and the drill. But to me, I guess the biggest thing that stood out was the fact that they're actually doing large scale evolution nerfs. Like I never once would have thought, because they released the work in progress ones first, and I was like, wait, that's a lot of Evo nerfs where they were cutting back on the Evo stat buffs. And I was just extremely shocked that they would actually, go back on what they were doing, because they wanted Evos to be game breaking. Clearly, they made Firecracker, Bomber, all of this stuff, and they had ridiculous stat buffs as well. But the fact they're actually going back on those really stood out to me, because it shows maybe they actually are going to be going into the balance of the game and trying to actually tone Evos down instead of keeping them super game breaking.
Right. I mean, to be honest, I think maybe I know there's been some new community managers getting hired and stuff. I think they might have been given some more feedback than the previous ones, but I don't really know for sure. That's just a
Yeah,
speculation.
yeah, it's a great thing.
But I think they're listening a little more.
Yeah, it's a great thing for
For
sure.
sure, it's definitely like
Yeah.
very nice to see.
All right, so then I guess without further ado, let's get into the individual cards. We have this graphic that'll be flashing up on the screen, and we'll just talk about each of the changes and giving our thoughts on them. So we can start. We have the Evo Archers, and my personal thoughts, on Evo Archers, I play through Expo Cycle. It's a very integral card to our deck, and with this nerf, they're actually going to lose all their HP buff. So even though I was happy that they're reverting these changes, I think this is probably a net nerf overall, because they're just going to straight up die to arrows. They lost the HP multiplier. They will have a lot of damage, but just the fact that they die to arrows, I think, is kind of unfortunate. You cycle archers twice just to get back to a special version that still dies to arrows. Like, it just feels kind of demoralizing, I suppose.
Right. Well, I think, to be honest, the archers dying to arrows is crazy. I'm not gonna lie. But honestly, I think with the damage multiplier being that high, I actually think they're gonna be utilized pretty good. Like you can get a lot of value out of them, especially if your opponent doesn't have the arrows. Like, say they have a fireball or a poison. Even if they fireball your archers off the map, you can still get a ton of HP like damage done. Because 20% is crazy. Because the Evo archers already do a pretty significant. Like they're solid, right? They're solid on
Yeah,
defense,
for sure.
especially in sniping things at the bridge. I think they're going to be okay. Not crazy. It's an interesting change, but I don't think it's going to kill them if that
All
makes
right, so
sense.
you think
Like
they'll still
I
be
don't think so at
used,
least.
just like it's a different.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I hope they will. I'll still try them in 3.0 for sure, but we'll have to see. Moving on, we have the Evo Barbs, and I believe they didn't fully cut back the HP multiplier, so they're still gonna survive Fireball with this HP deduction or reduction, but they are gonna have increased rage as well. They're gonna have 50% more time where they're raged, so I definitely think this is a net buff for the Evo Barbs. They have some new interactions, like I believe Fireball E-Spirit's gonna kill them, but the fact that they just have more rage means they're gonna be so much better on defense and even offense, honestly.
Okay, so the duration of so the duration means the rage time is going up. Is that what
Yeah,
it
I'm pretty
means?
sure, like, that when they get
Plus
hit and
50%.
then they're raged up for that period, I think that's what's going up.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, well, 3 seconds is a long
Yeah, for
time
sure.
in this game for sure, especially when it's a raged Evo Barb. So honestly, I think that's probably a buff,
Yeah, yeah.
even though it says rework on
You
here.
think we'll see them quite a lot more often, or just kind of in the same decks, like maybe Golem, Lava Hound sometimes?
I think it's going to be a pretty heavy beatdown meta. I
Oh
think that's what's
god,
going to
okay.
happen.
As
Maybe some giant graveyard with
Yeah.
barbs.
Oh, on that note, speaking of which, I think we should in this video we should also talk about uh, cards that we think missed the mark on this, like the cards that still should have been nerfed and they weren't. Like even on here, like of
Right.
course I'm gonna say giant. I feel like you might as well, but yeah, we can get into that more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Honestly, I think giant maybe a slight nerf, but I don't think it's like that crazy. Maybe Dagger Duchess just was boosting it a little bit.
okay, okay.
But I still do think it needs like a 3% HP nerf or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Also, guys, I forgot to say this at the start of the video, but let me know if you do enjoy this kind of video, like, a podcast style video with my friends like Hunter, because we have, discussed making this video for a while and just want to see how it does. If you guys want to see more of this kind of stuff, just let us know in the comments. It would be pretty fun.
Yep, yep.
All right, so
All right, are we on to
yeah,
bats?
let's go to bats. You can go first with this one.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So I actually think bats are one of the worst cards ever to be released in the game, the evolution ones, because for 2 elixir, I don't know. I think they're just really overpowered for the situations they get value in. Like if you don't have the right response, they can literally take your entire tower for 2 elixir, and your tower will be, especially with the Dagger Duchess, if it's out of ammo, like you literally cannot kill the bats. So I think that's I'm glad they're getting nerfed. I think they're a toxic evolution, but I guess most evolutions are toxic. They're just too situational and get a lot of value if you don't have the correct spell in your deck. So that's my opinion on them.
Right. Okay, honestly, when you said one of the worst evolutions, I was like, wait, is he saying weak? Because I thought that was kind of crazy, but I'm glad that was not the case. No, I totally know what you mean, because I play 3.0, and my spirit doesn't kill the Evo bats, like E-Spirit or Ice Spirit. And archers aren't always there, because, in a lot of Evo bats decks where they have, say, giant graveyard with arrows, they can kill your archers, and bats just get infinite value. I'm essentially forced to fireball them most of the time, which is a flat -2 trade. So I totally agree, they're a very toxic card. Evolution, they're only 2 elixir, like, same as Bomber. When you have a card that's that cheap, any buff is pretty scary, and it's actually a really big buff, considering they can literally survive other spells and things like those, so I'm really glad they're getting nerfed as well. I think they're not exactly like too dominant in the meta. I don't see them everywhere, but they definitely did deserve this change for sure.
Right, agreed.
All right, so let's move on to Evo Ram then. What do you think about the Evo Ram? This is actually an interesting one.
Yeah, looking at all like this entire list, I think this might be the card that is completely cooked. I don't think. I mean, pushing its stuff away was kind of its only real threat, in my opinion, because if you play something on 0 to defend a battle ram, it would just shove it away and get to tower just barely. But I think with no push off, it's just going to be pretty boring and pretty basic because, I mean, even though it doesn't die to the building technically, it's still going to die before it gets to buildings the majority of the time.
Right. Do you
And now it's not that good, and nerfing it.
do you think wait, it says only to heavy troops, so do you think this means like it's only against those heavy troops, or overall pushback is removed?
I don't know. I mean, it says heavy troops, but does it even push off heavy troops? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I'm not even sure actually, but I agree. Honestly, when we saw the first initial clips of the RAM, I thought it was going to be one of the most broken things ever, and I feel like that's usually the case with all these super broken, or all these new Evos. They just try and show the most overpowered aspects in the clips to get it hyped and everything, but it ended up being pretty underwhelming, just because it's 2 cycles as well. It takes quite a while to get to it. And then when you finally do get to it, I mean, for us in our deck, we have quite a few responses. Like for you and Xbow, and for me with 3.0, we can Tesla, we can log to reset. I can go for my Spirit to reset as well. And that's like the biggest weakness of the RAM. So I feel like it does have quite a few weaknesses. I do still think that, in line with all the other changes, it receiving a nerf, like in line with all the other Evos also getting nerfed, is a pretty nice thing. But I suppose as you said, it's probably more cooked than almost all the other cards on here, just because it was already not doing that hot. Just getting another nerf.
Yeah, right.
Okay, then we have arguably the most controversial one, and I think you'll have some heated thoughts on this, so I'll let you go first. But Evo Bomber, finally got nerfed, and as you can see on my screen, the cycles are now 2 instead of 1. So, what are your thoughts on the evolution bomber?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts on this card and probably a whole compilation to be honest.
Yeah.
On my thoughts on it in videos. But to be honest, I think that it should have been 2 from the beginning. If it was 2 from the beginning, it maybe would have been okay. I also think that it should never do a double splash on a tower or a troop, to be honest. So if it was just like one splash, I think in 2 cycles, I think the card would be fine. I still think it would be a little bit too overpowered because if you can get 600 damage from one bomber throw across the river, that's just ridiculous in my opinion. Even if it is 2 cycles. It's literally more than any spell in the entire game from just a 2 elixir card placed on top of a troop that they put down. But that's why it's been like the lowest skill evolution ever released in my opinion. I mean, Firecracker too, both of them go hand in hand, like
Yeah, yeah.
But Bomber's been even easier to play because it just immediately does that damage.
Yeah, I feel that.
But like, I would have liked to see some kind of hit speed nerf or bomb nerf with that cycle nerf too. To be honest with you, because I don't think it'll be enough.
Okay, honestly, I think you have very valid thoughts. I mean, I agree it's one of the lowest skill evolutions, and generally, one of the lowest skill cards that's dominated the meta for quite a while, because we all hated the Firecracker when it was broken last year, and it was ruining the game. You know, everyone thought RG was the most broken evolution when all the first 4 Evos first came out, then Firecracker kind of dominated, because you drop it at the bridge, it takes like half the tower. Bomber's literally just that, but worse, because it's one less cycle. Like, who in their right mind thought it should be 1 cycle? First of all, it's a 2 elixir card, so why would why is it 1 cycle? Like, what are we doing there? And then also, it's just not very skilled. It's not very like you don't have to do much to abuse it. You drop it at the bridge. That's all. It's a magic archer on steroids. Use it with tornado. You get guaranteed bounces, even double bounces. It's so toxic. So, yeah, I actually do agree that it might need even more of a nerf than this, just because it's been dominating for so long. But I guess we'll have to give it some time to see how the meta shapes up, if it'll still be very used. At least we won't have people, spamming drill bomber first play, and then they're already back to another bomber in single elixir in like the first minute. I think that's at least a good change that's coming out of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to make it a lot. I mean, at least you don't have to deal with it as frequently. That's the only good thing with this change. But I still think it will need a nerf more.
Yeah, that's fair.
Maybe I'm just
biased. That's fair. Because I watch your videos, I've seen you get traumatized by it like many times. So don't worry. Like, I know where you're coming from. But
dude, yeah, I literally will get to the point where I'm like, I don't even remember if they have it in cycle because I'm just so focused on other things. If like a giant push or a drill poison push.
Yeah.
And then I'm just always panicking and having to play something at the river, even if it's not in cycle, because I just can't remember if it's there, because they get back around so fast,
Yeah, of course.
Sometimes you can't just, like, I genuinely have no clue with which one they have in rotation.
Yeah, it's insane. There's so much to keep track of, and, like, you have to predict it. If you like predict it and you miss, they have an advantage. If you don't predict it and they get you, then you're just down, like, 600 plus damage, so it's a lose-lose, like, all the time, basically. So definitely glad to see this card getting a nerf finally. I guess before we go into the next one, what do you think about how they're doing emergency nerfs? Because I feel like Bomber especially, and I know they already did do an emergency nerf that obviously wasn't enough, but like same for Dagger Duchess, like I feel like they've really just kind of missed the mark recently in terms of applying apt emergency nerfs, where if a card is just breaking the game, they should just address it straight up. Like, they shouldn't just play around and let it dominate for so long. I feel like it's kind of a problem when they allow cards to dominate for so long, and I'm kind of upset that they haven't done emergency nerfs as much recently. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just I don't know how they can go an entire season watching cards like the Little Prince and the Bomber, and the Poison too, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then just allowing it to be the exact same meta the next season. It's like an 80% usage rate.
Yeah, dude.
Like, a couple cards have like a 60 to 80% usage rate in the top 200 or top 100 area.
Legit.
Like, come on, man. It's not even fun at all.
Yeah,
I'm
pretty sure. That's just I'm pretty sure Bomber was like 150 out of 200, like legit 75%. And either Bomber or LP, one of those was that high up. The other one was like 100 out of 200. Like, it's just ridiculous, honestly. I hope these changes will give us a better meta, and then I hope we'll also see, more changes in general, like more responsibility on their end if stuff's going out of control. Um,
Yeah, I'd love to see more emergency nerfs, but
yeah.
I guess it's not up to
Yeah,
us.
yeah, it's not, but we can try our best. Anyway, we are moving on to the Firecracker. This is honestly one I have not seen too much just because I feel like Bomber just overshadows it. But same as the Archers, it's getting its entire HP buff removed, so at this point it's just going to die to arrows. It is getting a buff with the big sparks duration, so it's going to last a bit longer. Small sparks duration also getting a buff, and I believe now these sparks are going to do a 15% movement slowdown if I read this graphic correctly. So a decent buff to the Firecracker's attacks, just that it's still going to die to arrows. So like, what are your thoughts on this, radical change?
Um, I think Firecracker is going to be a card where you're just going to have to get the value out of it right away more because it's going to die to the arrows. So like you're going to play it more at the bridge, more less defensively and more offensively. Probably with this change is my thoughts on it. Nothing too crazy. I think it's a good change.
Right, okay. So you think, do you agree with this like thought process they have or this philosophy where all these evos, they should die to arrows just as the base card does, or say like barbs, even though that's not the case. Maybe barb should also die to fireball instead of getting these crazy stat buffs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is a hard one. Like, should it die to arrows? I don't know because it is an evolution. It's 3 elixir, right? But I don't understand their thought process with the spells killing certain spells killing what, because like a 3 elixir card kills an ice wizard dies to a fireball, but a little prince doesn't. Like,
Yeah.
there's just so many cards that don't make sense.
Right.
With stuff like that. So I mean, I would say yes, but at the same time, since there are other cards that just don't die to spells, I don't know
That's fair.
if it really should die to arrows. But I think it'll still be an okay card. It's not going to be broken.
Yeah, for sure.
I know people will disagree with me on that for sure.
Many people have firecrackers.
If you know how to deal with it, it won't be broken.
Yeah, many people have firecrackers like their
No,
most
I mean I hate
card.
it too, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there definitely is a few people that more than a few that dislike it.
But yeah.
Wait, what is the next
Okay.
one? Small sparks duration. Is that its app?
No, that's still the firecracker. Like they're increasing the duration of those sparks that last, and they're
wow.
also giving the movement slowdown to effect to those
Didn't even
sparks.
notice that.
Yeah, I think that's like what the whole rework's goal is to do.
Oh, okay.
All right, so moving on, we have the Evo Knight, and this is actually one that I want to ask you more about because you play it more than me. I don't like going against it at all, but it's straight up just getting a nerf. It's getting the HP multiplier decreased from 1.2 times to 1.1 times, and they were initially going to give it a shield buff where when it's in a shield mode, it's going to get a 10% more damage reduction at 70% instead of 60, but they changed that, so it's a straight up nerf. So, do you think this is going to be a big nerf to the Evo Knight, and as someone who uses it in your main deck, are you going to change what you use, or how do you think it's going to affect the Knight?
Right. So even though it's like obviously in my deck that I use for ladder, I think it's a good nerf. 8% is pretty fair. It's not. Yeah, I like the damage reduction was going to be interesting if they actually did that rework, but they're not going to do that now, I guess. So it's fine. I think it's a good nerf on like overall. It is a little bit too strong. It was too good against the Dagger Duchess in general.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I think Knight's still going to be a good card. Not. It doesn't need to be as tanky as it is. So I'm fine with 8% nerf for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I think it definitely synergized well. Got a good point on the Dagger Duchess meta as well, because it just soaks up all those daggers, and the Duchess is low on daggers to reload, and at that point you can just rush them and kind of overwhelm. Like I saw in some of your videos, you'd have an Evo Knight counter pushing on offense. You'd like do an offensive NATO with it, and it would just like get 1,000 damage by itself. Like it's just very good in this meta.
Right.
Yeah, but you think it'll still be used? That's an interesting point.
Yeah, I think it's still going to be it's still going to be solid. 3 elixir, there's not really a card that's like that and has that much HP. So
Yeah, okay.
even if they nerf it more, I think it'd still be used in a lot of decks.
Okay. I did see it a lot in the top 200 and even top 10. I think it was like 50% of the decks. So definitely doing well for quite a while. But moving on, we have the Evo Mortar. Pretty much straight up getting a nerf to the HP multiplier. It's not going to have any bonus HP multipliers now, which is, I think, a nice thing. It's a very good card. I feel like it's one of the biggest sleeper cards in the game, like the Evo Mortar. Because everyone's using other broken Evos, of course. You don't really see it very often, but it's a very good card because I believe it has more HP, or it used to. It has those crazy strong goblins, and I believe it has like a faster hit rate or some other buff to it as well, like faster hit rate, or the goblins that spawn like the mortar shots are better or something like that. It's a crazy sleeper card, so I think this nerf is very much justified.
Yeah. To be honest, Evolution Mortar is kind of one of those cards where you always have to spend more elixir because they're going to protect it. It's kind of like an Expo in the term, like in the way that people protect it. They just drop their entire bar in front of it because they don't want it to die. Because it just sits there and shoots forever. It feels like.
Yeah.
So I do like the HP nerf.
Yep.
I think it definitely needed one because it always feels like the Evolution Mortar gets those last two Goblin shots or like even three.
Yeah, dude.
With like 10% HP left. So I think it's a good nerf for
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I'm glad to see it for sure. Now we have the next two, which I'll discuss together, which is basically the RG and the recruit. So what they're doing is they're reducing the HP multiplier from the Evo RG and the Evo recruits to make it no multipliers at all now. All they have is their effects, which is for RG is the golden balls, like it attacks stuff and splashes, and then for the recruits, they charge. But they're buffing the base RG and the base recruit. So this is like kind of a rework to the card overall, because it makes the Evo a bit weaker. But it makes, or actually I don't even know, because they're making the Evos a little weaker, but since the base form will be better, I guess, yeah, the Evo will be a little worse now that it has less HP, but the base form will be better. So overall, I feel like they're going to be a bit more consistent, because the base form, like they're like a naked RG, for example, is just straight up getting a buff. I don't know how the math works out in the sense that I'm not sure if this like HP buff on the base form cancels out the nerf on the Evo, but basically I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to make these cards better as a base card and like just remove the stat buff overall. So it's an interesting change for sure. I'm not really too sure how to feel about it.
Yeah, I don't really know how to feel about it either. Like, I think that both of them are pretty good cards. Same with the evolutions. I don't really know. It's kind of weird that they're nerfing the HP on the evolution RG, in my opinion, because like that was kind of what made it better. Obviously, it has a knockback, but if it dies as quick as a normal RG, I don't think it's gonna be that good. But I mean, that regular RG getting a little HP buff could get that extra shot back in. I know a lot of people um, do not like this change because it just like RG is a pretty annoying card to go up against, especially if you play a good RG player and they're just like cycling multiple in the back.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't know. I think the RG one is fine. Recruits definitely. I don't know. I think that they don't need a nerf or a buff ever, to be
No, I'm
honest.
with you
But
there.
just because of how easy they are to play, you really don't have to do any specific placements with them. You just drop them on top or in the back. So I don't think they're really a healthy card for the game overall.
Totally.
And I'm not just saying that 'cause I
They're very toxic. There were some very toxic metas, Goblin Giant recruits. Let's not go back to that one ever, where they were just ruining the game.
right.
So yeah, I don't know. I hope it's not going to be a net buff with the base one being better. I don't know if this changes any interactions. Like for me, my biggest interaction against recruits is log kills the shield, then fireball kills the base recruit, so I can like log fireball on defense pretty effectively. Hopefully it doesn't change too much, but we'll have to see if these are used more. I think they obviously wanted to buff the base forms a little bit. Maybe they thought they were lacking and overshadowed by the other Evo, so they wanted to give it some kind of chance.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's different. It's definitely a change they haven't really done.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
All right. So now we have Evo Skellies.
These next two are these next three.
Yeah, these ones are interesting. You and I have both definitely used the Evo Skellies before in our main decks. Like, for example, when Evos first came out, without running a Firecracker in Xbow, Evo Skellies was the only card we could actually use in Xbow as an evolution. So we kind of had to use them for a while. But they're just straight up getting a nerf to the first hit, and I don't know specifically what interactions this will change, but I think it's a big nerf. Like, I think I saw some clips where they were just so much worse than they currently are. They're obviously not going to do their stupid shenanigans against poison anymore, where they're going to out damage a poison, I think, because this first hit time is a pretty big deal. But it just seems like a big nerf, and I don't know. They're a pretty good card. I feel like they're a sleeper card right now, because everyone's using, Evo Knight, Evo Bomber. I've seen Evo Skellies put in work, but I don't know if this change is going to be a big hit to them. What do you think?
I think that they're already really easy to kill. I don't think they need any kind of nerf, but Yeah, definitely it's gonna make them a lot worse. It's already pretty easy to react to them with how slow they are on that first hit speed. I know a lot of the times, like if you play Evo Skelly's the bridge, even like a Tesla can take them out um, before they actually like. Say you play an Expo, right,
Yeah.
and they play Evo Skellies on top of them. Like the Tesla will literally kill all the Skellies before they even gets to the Expo. So I don't think they're that good, but I don't know. I think that's it's gonna be a pretty detrimental nerf overall. I don't think the Skellies will be that great.
Hmm.
Um, just in the entire meta. That's just my thoughts, though. I mean, they're always going to get value for one elixir, but they're not going to be
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So, I mean, I guess this is still in line with just them wanting to nerf every single Evo. I don't think any Evos dodged this, massive wave of Evo nerfs. As far as I'm aware, I think this hits every single evolution. Um, if I'm wrong, like correct me in the comments, guys, but I think so. So that's just in line with that. Next up, we have the Tesla, which is a huge one for us because you and I both play this religiously in our main deck, and it's like a huge thing. So they're reducing the HP multiplier from 1.2 times to 1, which means it's going to get no more bonus HP, but it's getting a small buff in another way, which is it's going to get a shockwave upon death, where it just emits another pulse. So I personally was not very fond of this change because I think a big thing about the Evo Tesla is the fact that it's a bit more survivable against spells. You can't just nuke it with an Earthquake or a Lightning, now a Void, and kill it. It's just going to go back to that state. The Death Shockwave is nice. I saw some people saying it's a net buff because that Shockwave is going to piss them off a lot, but I don't know. I don't see how this is like a crazy buff to the card.
Yeah. Well, my thoughts initially it's really maybe a situational card more now, just because it depends on what your opponent has down. It also depends what you're playing Tesla in. So I think it's going to be better for Expo specifically, just because you get that second shock. Maybe you can like kill something and keep your Expo alive, especially since the poison's getting a nerf. But with like control decks, like say you're playing Miner or Drill or even really like Graveyard, anything that could use a Tesla in it, that isn't Expo where you're going to be supporting it at the bridge. I think it's going to be worse for those kind of decks, but still could be better for Expo just because it has that secondary shock. So, I mean, personally, it's an interesting rework. I think that it'll still be the number one building in the game, in my opinion.
Right. Oh, so you think Tesla's number one overall right now because of the Evo?
Yeah, I mean, what's better? I mean, Mortar, I guess. Mortar and Tesla are probably the two best
Fair.
buildings.
I think Tesla's
Maybe
probably
Bomb. I mean,
used
Bomb
more.
Tower is pretty mediocre.
Like
Yeah,
Expo for sure, and I think Logbait uses it. I believe, actually no, I think Mohammed Light in his deck was using Evo Scaly's Evo Zap, but I know he was using just a base Tesla as well. Like it's actually been.
yeah. Even the regular Tesla's good.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to have the evolution
Yeah,
one.
yeah. So it's interesting. Interesting that you also say it's going to be a net buff for Expo. I hope it will be, because I feel like we could use all the help we can get with how bad the meta's been for us recently. But yeah, we'll see how it plays out, I suppose.
Yeah,
All right. So next up, we have the Evo
yeah.
Valk. Getting a nerf to the HP multiplier, same as the Knight. So now it's going to have a 1.1 times overall HP multiplier, but the tornado damage is getting a buff, and I believe this will make it one-shot skeletons. I don't know if it'll one-shot the spear goblins and bats. I think bats. Wait, do you know if bats are like the same as skeletons in terms of HP, just flying?
Actually, I have no
Okay, I'm
idea.
in the game right now. Let me just check real quick. So bats are okay at Tourney Center. They have 122 HP, and skeletons have
Yeah, it's not gonna kill them.
80. Ooh, yeah. So bats have more HP. Okay, so this is not going to kill the bats, but it's just going to kill skeletons. So no bats, no spear goblins. That's interesting. So it's like a overall bit of an HP nerf, but they're giving it some kind of compensation by one-shotting skellies, I guess. It might be better against Graveyard now, against some swarms, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think it's a kind of. It feels like they just nerfed it a little bit because all the other evolutions are getting nerfed. Like it doesn't need a nerf at all. It's kind of one of the weaker evolutions in my
Yeah,
opinion.
for sure.
But it has the coolest mechanic. It's actually my favorite evolution in
Oh,
the game.
really?
Besides maybe Wizard. Wizard's cool,
Right.
but like before the Wizard, I'd say this is my favorite.
Okay.
Just because of you could defend pushes so much differently with the pullback. It's like a constant tornado. It's just a lot more fun than a lot of other evolutions and
Yeah,
balanced
yeah, yeah.
to the point where it's not going to be like crazy. So I don't know. I think it's a fun card for the game.
For sure. Fun mechanic.
Definitely one of the least toxic evolutions, I
Yeah,
think.
it's great on defense, but it doesn't feel like, super oppressive. And I believe it's 2 cycles, so you're not just spamming it and abusing it. It's
It
like,
is. Yeah.
just, it's there. And you don't even see base Valk much at all compared to the Knight. Knight is just much better, so yeah. It just got a nerf along with the Evos, I guess. Okay, we have 2 more Evos now. Next one is the Wall Breakers, which runner damage is getting reduced by 50%, but the speed is increasing by 33%. So runner, I believe this runner means yeah, I don't know. I think this runner thing means the wall breaker that actually runs, like with the dynamite on its head. I think that's what they mean by runner. So I guess that damage is going to be quite a lot less, but it's going to be faster to compensate. Seems like a net nerf, because that's pretty annoying, but at the same time, it's going to be really good at punishing. If you're at 0 elixir and you have a extremely speedy wall breaker just rushing at your tower, it's going to be very tough to react in time, let alone if you don't have elixir for it.
Dude, honestly, I think this could be a buff just because of how many. I mean, obviously the Dagger Duchess is getting nerfed, so you can actually play Miner again. In Miner Wall Breakers with how fast these things are, imagine that. Just think about that for a
Yeah.
second.
Oh god, okay.
Even though they're not gonna do nearly as much damage, they don't say if they still connect the evolution ones, they're still gonna get 196 damage per bomber,
Then
and
they get the
then
base
per
one too,
wall
right?
breaker, and then the regular ones. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's still gonna be 1,000 damage on your
Yeah,
tower
for two
with
elixir,
elixir.
bro.
So I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Interesting that you say it's a net buff. I hope it won't be, because one of my biggest hot takes in this game is that base wall breakers deserve a nerf. That's just me. I personally really don't like the card. It's also because I'm biased because they nuke half my expo for 2 elixir. But yeah, I really hope it's not a net buff. I would not like to see that personally.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's all right.
Okay.
It'll be interesting for sure.
We'll see what the meta cooks up.
Let's just see how fast they are.
Yeah. Okay, Evo Zap. This is a big one.
This next one, though.
Evo Zap is one of the most broken cards in the game right now, actually. I think it's one of the highest use rates. It synergizes in everything. Giant uses it. Lava uses it. Those are by far the 2 biggest ones, but even Golem, quite a few beatdown decks, and even some cycle decks. For example, Muhammad Light's deck that he finished number 1 with was his own custom-made minor poison deck that ran an Evo Zap in there. So, this card, just for 2 elixir, it's kind of like the opposite end of the archers and the firecracker, where they could survive arrows and spells. This is like the other way around, where it can kill stuff that should not die to it. For example, it can kill I think skeleton dragons it was able to kill by itself before, archers, firecracker, goblin gang, Goblin Barrel. There's all sorts of crazy trades and even spell cycle capabilities. It is also very good against Duchess, because the Duchess needs that time to reload. If you're triple stunning her, this is just maximizing that opportunity to capitalize on her being at 0 daggers. So definitely nice it got nerfed. This nerf looks like it's just going to be a damage nerf of the strikes. So first strike will be the same, but second and third will be a lot less. So you think this is a big nerf overall? Changing some interactions.
Well, okay, so the strike's going to be the same for all 3 strikes, right? That's what this is. Or am I wrong?
think the first one will still be as strong
96.
as it used to be, but the other 2 will not. I think, anyways.
Okay. I think the card's dumb because of just it just allowed a lot of players to overcommit with a giant graveyard push, and then just Evo Zap whatever you place, even if it's a 4 elixir card. Even if you don't kill the card, just how much damage it does allows you to arrows it. So the combination of those 2 is just so toxic.
Yeah.
So it does need a nerf. I think it's a good nerf, but I still think that arrows plus Evo Zap will probably be a great combination. Probably Void too.
Oh, for
somewhere
sure,
in
for
there.
sure. Void arrows might be the new meta, dude.
But
Not looking forward to that.
maybe the Zap will get taken out because it's an evolution. There's probably better evolutions, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
Also, I just checked all the Evos in the game, and so everything was touched except for the Evo Ice Spirit, which I actually would say does deserve a buff. To be honest, that card is straight garbage. I never see it used.
Dude, they that card's hero cycle, and that'd be like no one would complain.
Yeah, because it's just like, the mechanic of the card itself, it just kills itself like when it jumps. Like I feel like that just makes it so much less valuable than other Evos. Because compare it to say an Evo Knight or Evo Archers that stay on the board and get value. It's just gonna die and kill itself. Like so, there's only so much it can even do. And then I think it's 2 cycles right now. Like that is kind of a meme. Like it's just a really bad Evo.
That thing is terrible.
Yeah. Do you think it deserved a buff in these balances?
It's a fun. But yeah, I mean that should be 1 cycle at least.
All right. Yeah, like dude, the fact that the Evo Bomber was 1 cycle before and Evo Ice Spirit was 3, like that is just unbelievable to me. Like just that sheer juxtaposition right there.
Yeah.
Oh.
Here to be real, but maybe they just forgot it existed.
Yeah, probably it's very forgettable. But okay, that's all Evos. So I guess to finalize on the Evos, is there anything you're unhappy with, or do you think these are overall like good changes and you're excited to the new meta with the Evo changes, not including the other ones yet?
Yeah, I'm excited for just them to be worse because obviously the game is evolution based at this point. But yeah, Bomber definitely still is going to need a nerf in my opinion.
Right.
And then probably I think the Tesla's going to get changed again after this season. It's going to be really good in some situations.
Man, I hope they don't.
I think Xbow could potentially be bad. We'll see.
Okay. It'll be interesting to see how Tesla does.
But we haven't got
Yeah. So, okay, next up on this list then, we have the Tower Troops, and I want to talk about Tower Troops in general for a little bit. Like, what do you think about Tower Troops in terms of what they did for our game and, like, the impact they've had? Do you think they were a good addition to the game? Do you like the concept of a Tower Troop? And do you think they were executed well?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think that the Cannoneer, I don't know, it just changes the game to a point where it makes it a lot more, it's kind of hard to describe. I don't think that they're good for the game, is what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Because it changes every interaction, which is fine, but it's just so much better against certain things and so much worse against certain decks, so it's just going to, make the game... you know what I mean? It's just so much more situational depending on the tower troop you have and what deck you're running. Whereas if you only have the Princess Tower, at least the matchups can be a little bit more consistent. You're not going to have to they've got a Cannoneer this game, so I'm going to have to, say you're playing a bait deck and they're playing Dagger Duchess, you're like, oh, I'm cooked. And if they're playing Cannoneer, you're like, oh, this is great. You know what I mean? So it's just do things like that. That's just an example, but I think that that's kind of unhealthy.
Yeah.
Overall. Also, the Dagger Duchess was the worst, obviously, worse than the Cannoneer, like in terms of brokenness. Like, oh my gosh, it's ridiculous. But I was actually excited to see if people use the Princess Tower again because of all these nerfs. Honestly, I'm going to make a take, though, right now and say that they're still going to use Dagger Duchess is going to be the best thing.
Yeah. So as far as the EOs go, or rather, as far as the Tower Troops go, I'm totally with you. I think they were not a good addition to the game just because they changed the way we think and play overall. We grew accustomed to the same way of playing for, 8 years or however long this game has been out at this point. I think it might even be 8 years now or something. And we learned interactions based on the Princess Tower. So just Cannoneer itself, when it came out, was so broken. It revolutionized everything. And I don't remember if it was too weak on release or too strong and they either nerfed or buffed it, but whatever state they left it in, it was the only good tower troop on top ladder. Everyone was using it. I don't think there was any princess user, unless they literally had no money and they could not afford to buy the offer. But then we saw the Duchess, which continued the power creep. Everyone had the Duchess, and the sad fact of the matter, especially last season, was if you didn't have a Duchess, you were straight up at a massive disadvantage. Especially because she literally spawned with more HP than a princess. She's already better than a princess. And she has more HP as well. That's just insane. But, yeah, I think it's just, as you said, it's, it makes it kind of matchup dependent, where they're good against some decks, bad against others. And it's just rock, paper, scissors. No one really wants that in a strategy game, So, I think they're a cool concept. Of course, they need to revolutionize the game and think of new ways to play. But I think the execution was very bad. I would not... I was not happy with the way the state of the game was when they were out. Still not really happy, but hopefully these changes help. I agree with you that the Dagger Duchess will be, the most used tower still, because she's only going to have less HP. She's still better than a princess in many situations, especially if she's full on daggers. And Cannoneer had quite a lot less HP than the princess before, and he was already used everywhere. So why won't it be the same for Dagger, But at least she'll have less HP. Like, it's the absolute least they could have done to her.
Yeah, I think it'll get another nerf, but we'll have to see, I guess.
Yeah, okay, so that's Tower Troops. Now let's talk about the non-evolution changes. We have 3 of them, starting with the Pump. So the Pump got its generation time increased to 12 seconds from 9 seconds, and the duration overall was increased to 86 seconds. So it's going to stay on the board for a very long time, like a minute and a half is insane. What I believe this does is it changes no interactions with spells. I might be wrong. I don't know for sure. I think it changes no interactions with spells, but it's just that it's going to give the Elixir Pump player less time to get Elixir, because they're going to have to wait longer to get their full rewards, I guess. I think this was meant to be a net nerf, but I don't know. I mean, I've seen some people say it could be a buff to beat down, because over time you're going to have more Elixir to build a massive push and just steamroll them. But obviously it's worse in single, so I don't know. Do you think this is like a net nerf, or like what's going on with this change?
Yeah, this is an interesting one, to be honest. I think the Pump overall is just, I mean, obviously nobody likes to go up against an Elixir Collector, no matter what you're playing.
Yeah.
Unless you got Earthquake, or Void, I guess. But, it's just weird. It's going to obviously take 20 more seconds. I'm assuming it still does the same amount of Elixir overall, like gives you the same amount. But dude, like 86 seconds. Think how many bumps people can put on the map.
Yeah.
Like if you're playing a cycle deck with the pump, like pump bow or something like that. Even if you're playing Golem, you're gonna get at least like 4 or 5 pumps on the map, and that's gonna last you the entire
5
game.
bumps is insane, dude.
That's gonna be on the map the entire time. Like that's why I'm confused.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see. You pretty much have to spell it no matter what, is my opinion, if you're going to have any chance of defending later on the games.
Right. Yeah. I hope...
So it'll just be like Golem and behind the Golem, and then if you overwhelm, the meta will be.
Yeah.
If Pump's meta.
Dude, I hope it won't be a net buff. I really hope, because according to the graphic, they wanted it to be a nerf, but I don't even know. I don't even know. But okay, we'll see. Next up, we have Drill. One of the most standout ones for sure, and one of the most deserved ones. Straight up getting a first spawn nerf from 0.5 to 0.8 seconds. It was like the strongest cycle deck by far this season, and I think one of the only ones that was consistently at top ladder. It was definitely more of a beatdown meta this season overall, but Drill, just because, without perfect reaction time or even predictions, it's always getting at least one hit on your tower with that first initial goblin. So I think that won't be the case anymore. Very nice to see that it's getting this nerf. And I think the reason it was so good is because with Duchess being such a good defensive tower, there are very few win cons that can still work well with her. And I feel like Drill was one of them, where, it just spawns straight on the tower and still does what it has to do. So that might have been why it was so good. I don't know why it was buffed, actually. They'd give it like a big buff last season, but at least it's getting nerfed now.
Dude, they do that like every year, at least once. They just randomly buff the Drill to make it do this. And they don't ever learn anything. I don't know how they've done it like 4 times. But you can't make it get an instant first shot. Like, even if you're playing Perfect Micro and you don't predict the card, it's still going to get one hit unless you literally play your Skellies immediately, which a lot of players, like, I'm going to be real, the timing is hard.
Yep.
Even the best players, like, I mean, not saying I'm the best player in the game, but I would struggle with it a lot.
Yeah.
Just catching the goblin, especially if it's in the front of the tower. Like, you can play a knight, but you have to do it, like, instantly.
Yep.
And a lot of people, like, obviously good players are going to switch up their Drill, so it's just, like, a really bad, it's terrible for the game to make it spawn that fast. So it is a good nerf, putting it back to wherever. 0.8 seconds is fine, I guess. At least gives you a little bit of time,
Mm-hmm, for sure. I think everyone's in agreement. Like, Drill players might complain, but... This nerf was way long time coming. We had to struggle.
There's no way anyone can complain after how many people were using it last season.
Dude, yeah. And what comes next goes hand in hand with Drill, because this was like the big spell of choice in those decks. But now we have Poison, a card that was not in the final balance changes, that got a nerf here. So it's straight up getting a 17% Crown Tower damage nerf. Now it's going to do less than a Fireball, actually, and I think it'll do more than an Earthquake, but less than a Fireball. So for the same elixir, it's like better defensively against a Fireball, because it still, kills, for example, stuff that a Fireball wouldn't, like a Little Prince, or a Poison Log kills a Queen, whereas a Fireball won't. It also does have the slow effect, where it makes it very good on defense, slowing stuff down, and it has a bigger radius than a Fireball, I believe. It lasts longer, so it's not instantaneous, but it has, an area of effect that gives it value. So I think very much a deserved nerf. This card has been dominating for years, it feels like, where Minor Poison's been broken for a while before. Now, Drill was broken with Poison. People were just making Venn diagrams of Poisons on their tower with 3-card cycle. Very happy to see it getting a nerf.
Yeah, I mean, I even if you're not like a consistent player in this game, like every single day, you still know that Poison's broken. This is one of those cards that's been meta forever, dude. And it's been like, I can remember every single month somebody making a post on Twitter and saying, "Yeah, where's the Poison nerf? How to keep avoiding a Poison nerf?"
Yeah.
And they're right, because it's just like genuinely, especially with the 3-card cycle, like you said, it is just like, dude, it's not even funny how much damage you can rack up in a matter of like 15 seconds at the end of a game with 2 Poisons, a Minor, a Drill.
Yep.
Like it's ridiculous. But yeah, definitely a good nerf. I think 40 HP is like perfect for it as well. It's not going to be that, like, it's still going to be a very usable card.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be the best spell, and maybe cycle players will finally play something other than a Poison, dude.
Yeah, like, I'm excited
Like,
to not lose to Poison by default when I'm playing through Puno now. Like, my Fireball will actually stand a chance to, like, against Minor Poison and Triple. They'd always just win because they get more damage than you no matter what. So I'm excited for that to finally change. Like, it's been a long time coming.
Right.
But yeah, that's all for all the cards. So I guess we can end by talking about cards that we wish were on here. I'll start by talking about Giant, because for me, it's probably my most hated card in the entire game right now. I've run campaigns on Twitter where I complain and cry about Giant, and they actually do get like hundreds of likes sometimes, so some people are in agreement. I just, I saw top 200 last season. Literally, like, over 50 out of the top 200 had Giant in there. I think 5 out of 10 in the top 10 had Giant in there. And it's just insane. I think what you said earlier has some truth. Duchess is pretty bad against Giant because beatdown, and that's fair. Like, it's not just Giant being super broken, it also does well in the meta. But the fact of the matter is, even before Duchess, it was still doing well. And, I've argued with Giant players on this a lot because they always flock to defend it in my comments. But, like, just because Giant does well because of other things, like, tower troops, doesn't mean it's still not a problem. Like, it's been a problem for months now, I feel. Before Duchess, it was Cannoneer, and Giant Graveyard was so good because Cannoneer sucks against Graveyard. Giant Graveyard does very well against it anyways, so I think what they could easily do to nerf this card is just revert the last range buff they gave it, where, it goes, you place a building in the middle and both towers don't even target it. I think that's so unfair. And that's a really easy thing to change. There's also that, Xbow Tesla placement. You do a center Tesla, you tuck your Xbow in. A Giant won't even get hit by the Tesla anymore because of that range buff if they play it correctly. So I want to see that change at the very least. I also wouldn't mind an HP nerf, but I really hate this card, so I don't want my bias to get too a hold of me. So what do you think? Like, am I too biased, or is Giant a problem?
Well, I mean, if you think, where my geez, I think you watched part of it. I literally locked like 9 Giant Graveyards in a
Yep,
row.
I saw it. Yep.
So we didn't even need to say anything, but yeah, I maybe like a 3% HP nerf. I don't think it's that crazy. I think it is, the meta plays really good into the card's hands, and I think it's going to be a Giant Lightning meta this season as well. Maybe Giant Graveyard, probably those two combined.
Oh god.
Like, a good mixture of both. So that's just my prediction. I think it needs a little bit of a nerf. Nothing crazy. Like I said, 3 or 4% HP might make it worse. Maybe the range as well. I don't really know what all the interactions are, to be honest with it, but yeah. The card that I think a majority of people are pretty upset thinking a nerf is just the Little Prince, because it's been
Yep.
the best champion for like ever now
Yep.
since it's been released. And it's been like what 3 or 4 seasons of being a top 3 card in the entire game. So I think a lot of people are tired of it. It gets small. It's gotten a few small nerfs, but it's just never been like actually made bad. And I think it's time to just make the card decent and not broken because it's been so good for so long.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm glad you said that because I had a feeling you would. That's why I started with just Giant. So, obviously, no one can deny how good it is. I think a big reason why it's so versatile as well is because it's a 3 elixir champion that hits air and ground. Like, no matter what, that by itself is very versatile because you have good defensive capabilities against any deck, and you have 3 card cycle for cheap, only 3 elixir. Also, it literally survives the fireball. It's actually really good on defense when it gets the max charge up attack speed, and the ability is beyond broken as well. It's just so good. So how would you nerf it then? Because there are many ways it could be nerfed. How would you nerf it?
Right. Well, I know the I forgot the guy's name. He's
Donald.
one of the community managers. Like he said that he said that they don't want it to die to fireball, which is stupid. I mean, it's a champion, but it's 3 elixir. Everything that's 3 elixir in a ranged unit like that should die to fireball. If you're gonna make a card like Ice Wiz and like if it's 4 elixir, it survives. Obviously I'm
He's
biased
heard
on
about
that,
the
but,
Ice
there's
Wizard,
only one
yeah.
Ice Wiz in the top like 200, so come on, I can be biased.
Yeah. You've earned it.
If a fireball's gonna kill an Ice Wiz, it should kill a Little Prince. Like that's just that simple in my opinion. Of a nerf, it's already gonna be good enough. You still have to spend 1 extra elixir to kill it, and you can still pop the ability instantly. Oh no. Okay, never mind. Screw everything I just said. The perfect nerf for it is you have to make it not able to pop the ability instantly because
Ooh.
this card, like the second you can put it down, you can pop the ability, and that is horrible because no matter what, you're gonna get the Guardian off. So you can, even if you predict the LP, you can still get the Guardian off. If you have a Tesla already on the map, they still can put the Guardian down. It's like, bro, this card, like, you should not instantly be able to pop the ability. It needs to be like fully deployed on the map first.
Yep.
And I'll just give it like an extra half second. That's a perfect nerf for the card. I've been like saying that for a while actually on my videos.
All right.
It just came back to me right now.
Yeah.
It's like 5 in the morning, so I'm sorry I forgot.
No worries, man. No worries. But we don't have video, but I was like nodding my head at everything you said. Like I think that is a big issue about this card. It's a big bailout. You play it last second. You can get the ability down. It'll help against anything. It can defend a graveyard. It can defend a drill. It can defend any beatdown push like Golem, Giant with that massive pushback. And as us, like Xbow players, it can just solo an Xbow. It's so dumb. You place it right on top of the Xbow. You pop the ability. Guardian spawns on the Xbow, kills anything in its path. One-shots archers, skeletons, whatever you name. Knocks everything else back. And it's just so...
Right.
You're forced to overcommit so much against it, so that's a great nerf idea. Since they evidently don't want to make it die to fireball, I think they should do that where make the ability not instantly usable, maybe like a few seconds cooldown, and I would maybe even consider toning down the max hit speed as well, like making it a little bit slower, so it does a bit less. But that's just me.
Well, even like completely beside the point that it doesn't matter what deck you're playing, the card's gonna get infinite value. Like Lava Hound, it's gonna survive spells. Giant, it's gonna knock everything back. Like mortar decks, it's really good with like anything. The problem is you can play this card with like 90% of archetypes because it's so versatile, and the ability just makes it like a lot more annoying. You can literally defend any push. Like the thing is, you can overkill on offense, then you can defend an entire Giant or RG with like no hits because you can just drop the LP and pop the ability on 0. Like so many people get bailed out by it. Like that's a great point. It's made people a lot worse at the game because they just spam all in. Like that's why drill's been so popular. Giant always, uses LP to like 90% of the Giant decks with Lightning because the 3-card cycle added on to this ability. Like the card is not good for the game. So yeah, that's like the biggest card that needs a nerf in my opinion right now.
Yeah, totally fair. So,
but yeah, anyway, we can stop talking about it now.
About it. It's understandable frustration. Like I think we can all agree with that. So, other than that, are there any other cards you would nerf right now in the game, other than those two, Giant and LP?
Well, I think I would change the Void just because it's really getting really situational and it's really bad.
Yeah.
For the game, if it's going to just kill a card, it needs to like do damage over time to where you can at least react to it because just like putting something at 20% HP immediately. Even if you can predict it, sure, but you're already like spending that much elixir, and the majority of the time they're gonna place it on like a Archer Queen, a Witch, a Sparky, like something that's actually expensive.
Yep.
I think it's way too situational. It's kind of like the Tower Troops where it's gonna be really good in some matchups and decks, and then other decks it's not gonna be ever used. So I don't know. It's not a good card for the game.
Agreed.
That's my
I wish
thoughts
it
on that
wasn't
one.
released, honestly, because, I mean, it's a great Expo counter, but it's just not healthy. You know, I think it can solo a Sparky, Executioner, many.
Yeah, it
Like,
does.
dude, it's just RNG again. Like, it's rock, paper, scissors, if you have the right matchup for it or not. And it can also be useless against, like, swarm decks, you know? And it's not that reliable of a
Right.
spell in terms of getting tower damage. So if you go up against a deck that has a ton of swarm that can full defend your cards, then you pretty much just lose, I guess. But I don't know. I'm really worried about like Giant Void and especially Lava Hound Void this season. I feel like those will be the two best decks for it, and I'm a little bit worried about that, to be honest.
Yeah, Lava Hound Void's gonna be probably. I think we'll see the rise of Lava Hound this season for
Yeah,
sure.
man, it was already good last time. But okay, then I guess before we finish talking about balances, one thing I wanted to talk about with you, because we both love Expo, is what do you think about like an Expo buff, and do you think we deserve one? Do you think we'll ever even get one? Like, because you know, Expo itself is a very weak card.
Uh,
It's last season was the worst season for it in a long
right.
time. We didn't see like any Expo in the top 200. You were like the only one in the top 100, and it was like 5 or 6 top 200. Like one of the worst Expo seasons we've had in a long time. So I mean, like, what are we doing with Expo
Right.
here? Like,
Uh, uh, I mean, just like from a perspective of any player in this game, I don't think it is going to get buffed because people don't like playing against it. It's really that simple.
yeah,
And even though it does, it's a weak card. There's been so many clips and stuff where you literally have 2 expos on the map and you still can't break through when you're up 10 elixir. The card itself, like that's why I cannot play expo without a rocket, because it's just you can't get through in so many situations, and it's so frustrating. No matter how many good plays you make, um, that's why I think expo rocket's like the only viable one if you want to push up really high. I mean, bomber would work too, but now that it's 3 cycles or 2 cycles, maybe it won't be as good.
yep,
But yeah, I think that expo is not going to get a nerf. It probably does need a slight one, just like maybe a little bit more DPS on units could be something cool. Like, I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah,
It takes about 10.5 years to kill one single knight or one single like tank.
yeah, dude. Knight
Um,
opposite or Ice Golem
but
opposite.
that would be, I mean, I feel like that would be a decent buff if they ever did buff it. It's just how fast it kills units.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But, you know, I mean, I don't know how they could do that where it wouldn't affect the tower stuff as well. It'd be kind of a weird thing, but I'm sure that there's some way you can do that.
Yeah. What do you think about this
But
one?
do I
Like,
think we'll ever do it?
oh yeah, I don't think so either. It's the sad truth. I mean, it's very hated in the community as well. You know, many casuals just always trash on Expo, say it's no skill, say it's gay or whatever. So like, it's a perception thing as well. But what do you think about this one? Like
Yeah.
a deploy time buff by even like 0.5 seconds maybe. So it makes it a bit better at punishing. Say they're low on elixir and you want to get an Expo to punish, because they still have a few seconds to react, because the deploy time is 3.5 right now.
That's also a good buff, yeah.
That's something I've thought
I've
about
talked
for a
about that
while.
before, honestly.
Yeah,
But yeah, I don't know. It'd be good, like just something small. You know, it doesn't even have to be anything with its health or hit speed. Like just if it does more damage to troops, or like you said, the deploy time also is crazy.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I feel like there is a lot of situations where you get an expo down and they just barely get their tank down, and you still can't get it to get through. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So maybe like a tiny little buff on the hit, the deploy time could be decent as well. But I think it's situational. That'd probably help expo cycle decks a lot better.
Yeah, when you're using multiple of them for sure. But yeah, honestly, dude, this video went on a lot longer than we thought. Like we said we were going to do like maybe 20, 30 minutes, but it's almost an hour now. I'm not really complaining, you know, I had a lot of fun, but yeah. You have any like final thoughts on balances or just anything you want to tell people about like stuff, I guess, like before we close it?
Well, I mean, yeah. Even though like this might not seem like the most positive video of all time, I think this is good. These are great changes. The best changes they've done ever. So
Yeah.
you know, good on them. At least they're listening to people when they are listening. Like the evolutions are broken, right? Like everyone knows. They're not just gonna sit there and ignore them anymore. Hopefully, they do some emergency changes this season once they can see the meta. If they would do that every season, then this game could be like really good.
Yep.
But yeah, I think they're doing a good job. This season specifically with the changes. I wish they did changes more often, but I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah, dude. I agree. I think
But yeah, hour is crazy. I didn't even realize you were going.
yeah, no, we had a lot to talk about, and like time kind of went by. But I agree, these are like probably the best balances we've had in a long time. And shout out to Donald, the guy who kind of was in charge of them, because he is like new to the team, a
Right.
new balancer, and it's just crazy changes. You know, I'm really glad we saw the Evos. even the drill, the poison, like everything is good, and hopefully the game is in an upwards direction from here, because otherwise I don't know what we're gonna do. But yeah, that's pretty much all for the video, guys. Again, let me and Hunter know in the comments if you would like to see more of this type of, podcast or discussion type content. I know it's not really a thing, but we just wanted to do a collab for quite a while, so hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and if you'd want to see more, definitely let us know in the comments.
Yeah, dude, for sure. That could be interesting, but I guess it's what people want.
Yeah, so
But this was a lot of fun.
that was a lot of fun, man. Thanks
Never done a video
thanks so
like
much again for coming on, and we can probably do more in the future if we find good topics to do them on. It would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me
Yeah,
on.
for sure, man. It was...
I hope people like the longer videos.
Yeah, let's hope this does well. But that's about it for the video, guys. So thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Feel free to subscribe to Hunter as well. All his links will be in the description below, so definitely check him out. And
Yes, sir.
yeah, I hope you did enjoy this longer one. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Take care, and I will see you in the next one.